Bell, Cosmic Runner Podcast. This is Jason and Ricky. What's going on? That's right. Yeah, that first entrance that we just did,
right.
we were sitting there, I looked down, I wasn't even recording it, so, whatever.
Better to figure it out on the front end.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So what's up?
Enjoying the sun being back out. Man, the last 3 days, the weather has just been all over. It's been wet and then humid and a little chilly.
Well, the pollen's out in full force.
Right. We were talking a little earlier, but I'd mentioned to you about the Ides of March.
Right.
The 15th.
15th of March, yes.
Yeah. And so that's always been kind of an ominous day, supposedly.
Right.
Yeah. It has something to do with the ancient Romans. Well, not only when Julius Caesar got assassinated,
right?
Which is where that saying came from. But he evidently had oracles and people telling him that were close to him that they had a bad feeling and he needed to be careful. And he kind of threw caution to the wind on that one.
Well, I mean, you can read people's vibes, so you can tell he probably knew something's about to go down. You can feel. I mean, people act a certain way around you, have a certain energy and vibes. So,
it was kind of like I think they said that Mars was in retrograde. I'm not that familiar with astrology.
I'm not either.
But that's supposed to be kind of like a heavy time, I guess.
The 15th.
Yeah, the 15th of March, and
it happened he was assassinated just after midday.
Just after midday.
Yeah, I did a little research too when we were talking about. Plus, it was actually I knew a lot of it, but it kind of made me.
E2 Brute.
Right, that's right. Well, that's Shakespeare's famous for him.
Right. But so that's his rendition.
Right.
But once they killed him, they made him a deity. I mean, just strange society.
Now, he was stabbed a lot of different times. But do they know who was the first person that put it in his
I
back?
read about it when I was reading Cicero, but that's been a long time, and I don't remember. I don't know if it was Brutus or I know Mark Antony wasn't a part of it, and
right.
So they fell on him. I think it was 41 times or something.
Yeah, he got stabbed a bunch of times.
Yeah. So he bled out, and then they cleaned the Senate and went on their way.
Well, clean up the mess that they had there.
The mess.
Well, there was a mess before. Prior to him taking over too, wasn't it? Wasn't there a civil war or something like that? I don't know too much about that.
There were a couple of civil war and inner conflicts. It seemed like a lot of it had to do with when they were growing bigger and had a lot of different legions, and then there would be allegiance to certain legions to different generals.
Right.
And he had a lot of great battles in Britain and against the Gauls and the Goths and all this stuff. And
he's actually written. There was he had stuff that he wrote. Right.
And he paid better. And
his men that were under him.
And then he was super brave, whereas some of those generals would hang back.
Sure.
So and actually on the 13th there was a full blood moon. 2 days
prior to him being assassanated.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just talking about even this week.
Oh, there is a blood moon.
No, it was on the 13th.
Oh, there was.
It was a full moon.
I gotcha.
Well, it just kind of ties in, but so on the 13th, there was a full moon, blood moon, and I looked it up, and the way that happens is having a total lunar eclipse at night, and where the sun transfers its light through the moon in a different way, and it makes the moon look red.
Now they used to, the Romans, they used to use the lunar calendar, and then they changed that to the.
That's right.
To the
all the societies did really. They changed it to the solar calendar.
Right. Yes.
Which they call the Julian calendar after Julius Caesar.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. That's why I wanted to ask, because I knew you would know that. I know bits and pieces of things.
I'm the same. But they had 13 months in a lunar calendar, and it worked out pretty good, almost perfect.
And that at that time, March, that would have been I think they said. Well, that was actually the first month of the new year.
Well, going back, March is named after Mars.
Okay.
Which is the god of war.
Okay.
And it's the red planet. So it's kind of interesting. Number 5 on the color scale
Oh, yeah, red. I don't think they're going to understand. Well, a past episode, Jason was talking about when he was younger, he could remember, what was it, by colors or different?
It was just almost like some kind of download to me when I wasn't really thinking about it, and it just threw the colors.
Like the color on a certain experience. Or
from 1 through 9, each one has a representative color.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, and 5 is red.
So was Caesar, was he married at the time of his assassination?
Yeah, he was married. I can't remember the name.
What did he do to his wife?
I'm not sure what happened to her. They might have exiled her.
Okay.
You know, with his daughter.
They didn't kill her, though, did they?
I don't believe so. Not from what I remember. Like I said, I'm not that much of a scholar on any of that.
Now, was he, Caesar, like, regarded as, like, the best, what is he, freaking emperor? Or what
well, he self-appointed himself emperor.
Okay, right.
And so any Caesar that followed him, even though that was his last name, Julius Caesar,
okay,
they added Caesar to their name, or they were called, as their official title, Caesar. So you'd have, like, Tiberius Caesar.
But they started that after him.
Nero Caesar, yes.
Okay.
And, yeah, so they...
Well, I would say he was pretty important then, huh?
Well, they took his body away and then deified him, stole his name, but yeah.
You ever heard of the Caesar temp fade? Caesar fade haircut?
No.
Well, it's a haircut.
Okay.
I think it's people that have like shorter hair.
Well, he was semi-balding too.
Right, that's right. Well, and I did know that too. Like he tried to hide his baldness. I guess with those, like, what are those things he used to wear?
Laurel wrist.
Yeah, I remember that from like school. Actually, that's some weird trivia. I remember he did that because he was like really paranoid about his hair loss and thinning hair.
I remember I had I think a math teacher in middle school, but he was also a coach, a football coach.
Right.
And he was bald, as bald could be, and pretty young and buff and all that.
Sure.
And he had this plaque on his desk that said that bald pate is a sexy trait.
Bald
pate.
Pate?
Pate's like a forehead.
Oh.
Is it P-A-T-E, I think?
Well, it's also, have higher testosterone. I'm bald.
Well, I mean, I've got a bald spot in the back, and it's no big deal. It just is interesting.
Yeah, some people though, like really, like it bothers them, man. You know what I mean? Like the hair loss. I mean,
well, you remember the Flowbee, right?
Oh yeah, that was the
And then they had spray paint in. You spray your bald spot.
Right, the Flowbee was like it had like the vacuum cleaner hooked up to the shears.
That's right.
And then what was the spray? That was that one guy that invented all that stuff, all that shit back in the 70s and 80s. Ron Popeil he invented all that crazy, all those commercials back in the day.
Right.
He created all that shit.
I forget his name.
Yeah, and he would actually like spray that shit in his hair too on the show. It was Ron something, man. Yeah, I remember. He looked like the Joker from Batman, like Jack Nicholson. He looked like Jack Nicholson.
Did he trend over to QVC?
He may have. I mean, he was like maybe one of the pioneers. God, I don't remember. Ron Popeil? I don't remember his name. But yeah, man, he would do a lot of shit in the kitchen.
Right.
Like had the dehydrator.
Okay.
I think the name of his shit was Ronco. That was like the
Ronco.
brand.
Okay.
Ronco, yeah. But he invented all this different shit. But yeah, and then they would have the commercials, and this was prior to QVC.
That was earlier, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like early 80s.
Yeah. That's early 80s, late 80s.
He probably took on some other people's inventions under his company, you know?
Kind of like the, what's that TV show they got now when people have good ideas and shit? I'm watching
Shark Tank?
Yeah. He was like the predecessor to Shark Tank, maybe.
Yeah, I think, you remember the girl that invented, she was like 11, invented a perfect way to make crispy bacon in a microwave, and it was just basically a rack that each individual
like air,
sat on.
It's kind of like, like, well, it was all about the airflow, too, and like cooking it like consistently all the way through.
Right.
So,
all about the base, no trouble.
Well, man, I do bacon in the oven.
I've done it.
I do it in the oven, man, and then I like rotate it. It cooks, there's no mess.
Right.
You put a sheet liner on that. We got it drifted. We were talking about Caesar. And I was talking about cooking freaking bacon in the oven.
It's just one of them days.
Huh. I wonder what Caesar ate for breakfast the day he was assassinated.
His last meal.
Yeah, I wonder what that was.
Probably frozen grapes was part of it because...
they had ice?
Well, they'd go up into the Pyrenees, I believe, into slaves would, and bring back ice. I guess they'd keep it in hay. And then that was supposed to be like any fruit that you could freeze was such a rare delicacy.
Right, like ice cream to us back then.
Yeah.
Shit, I do that now. Bro.
Yeah, and they probably made some custard or something,
Watermelon in the freezer, cut up. You ever had that?
That's awesome.
It's killer. Grapes in the freezer are good too. All that shit's good.
Yeah. So, but they were just, a few hundred out of millions that did that.
Now, how many children did Caesar have? Do you know? Are you familiar with this information?
No, I don't. I think he had 2, but I'm not sure.
Didn't he mess with Cleopatra?
He did, actually. That's right.
Did they have a kid?
Goodness, that's a good question.
I bet they did.
I don't know. I was thinking, but he did have a relationship, and then later Mark Antony hooked up with her, and he got his ass almost handed to him from the Roman people because they felt like he was getting too identity politics with Egyptian ways because of his infatuation with her. But eventually they called him back, and he got assassinated, and she committed, I think an asp, which is a poisonous snake, and she it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet type story.
Oh, she like purposely poisoned, let the snake bite her.
Yeah, I think
really?
It was black asp. Yeah.
I didn't know that story, but I did. I don't know if this story's true, but the alligator dung for like contraceptive, they would shove it up in their, their vagina, and pack their cervix with alligator dung, and it was like a contraceptive. I'm serious.
No, I believe you, but I mean, I'm just curious. I was curious how they figure that out.
I don't know. Maybe the crocodiles are sitting up on the. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what their diet, the consistency.
Well, maybe flies. I'm assuming.
No, I know that's weird as hell to be talking about that, but I swear to you, I mean, there's a couple of things. I think she was the first, one of the first people to wear makeup too, right?
I believe.
Cleopatra.
I mean, I don't know if she was one of the first. I do know,
but she made it big.
She made it big. Yeah. That was supposed to be one of the magic arts. The Nephilim, the fallen angels that Genesis 6 talks about, where the men of renown came down and saw how beautiful the daughters of men were and picked up wives of which they chose. And so then there was a race of giants born from that. And why all that was going on.
How long did these giants thrive?
Up until the flood, so you guess about 800,000 years, and then there are smaller versions of them.
They were around 800,000 years, the giants.
Yeah, but before the flood.
Really?
Yeah. And then after the flood, there was a smaller version of them. I guess the bloodlines got thinned out, but kind of like David and Goliath. Goliath would have been.
But where did they live at? Where were these cats? Where was their territory?
Canaan was a Gath and Canaan outside of Israel is one of them.
Okay.
But different places. There weren't so many of them, and they never gave birth to female giants.
Never. So they couldn't really.
Yeah. I mean,
where did they come from?
Where did what come from?
The giants.
Well, they're fallen angels. That's the theological. There was 200 of them.
I thought maybe they actually had the bone. I don't know, it was a spiritual thing. I thought there was actual.
Well, they're eternal creatures, so if they exist, which I know they do, but once they had some way to morph or change into a human form.
Okay.
To procreate.
Okay.
And there was 200 of them. They landed on the Mount Hermon, which is between, I think, Syria and Israel. And that mountain has a lot of, they think when Jesus went on the Mount of Transfiguration, that was the one he went, when he took Peter and John with him.
The ones where the giant aliens landed?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, all of it's interrelated.
Sure.
But the women, human women, only gave birth to
normal
males.
Size.
Well, not normal size. Those
only males, right? Okay.
The angels, once they morphed into humans, weren't necessarily of giant stature. It was their eternal and powerful seed and which was against God's law, and they created hybrids, more or less, and those children grew to be giants.
Okay.
Yeah.
The giants didn't mate with normal-sized people like women, though, did they?
I don't know.
I mean, they could.
Well, they did a lot of weird things. Yeah.
Like how big were these giants?
Well, some people, there's evidence improved.
10 feet?
No, that would be after the flood. They said some of these, even after the flood, were taller than the cedars of Lebanon, and those would go over 80, 100 feet.
Oh, the cedar trees.
Yeah.
That's on their flag. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the Lebanon.
Lebanese
flag. Yeah. It was a cedar tree.
Cedar Lebanon. But there's, I mean, it's going down rabbit holes, but like the Devil's Tower out in Arizona, where you have that mountain and then a flat top.
Okay.
If you look at a lot of those things,
I haven't been there.
Well, there's a lot of them around the world, but the interesting thing is if you've ever cut down trees and worked with wood, you realize that there were giant trees back then, and there must have been giants to cut them down for whatever purposes.
Well, shit.
And then they petrify
those
after the
freaking
flood.
Redwoods.
Redwoods.
You have to be a giant to cut those down.
Yeah, well, there were bigger trees than that. Like if you can go back, like I said, that like on those mesas, and then you'd have, or like in the old westerns,
Okay.
You would see out in the distance.
Like the spaghetti western?
Well, any kind of western, every now and then in the background, you'd see one of these big, it almost looks like a volcano.
Okay.
But it's really...
formation in the middle of nowhere.
An ancient tree that got shut down and got petrified. And you look at it and you can see the bark and you can see where, like...
the way it, like the texture of it. And the way
where a giant cut it down, and that's why it's got a flat top. Yeah.
Well, I would like to see one of these trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too many.
The Devil's Tower is one of them that I'm familiar with.
That's in Arizona, you said?
I think so, or New Mexico, Arizona, maybe.
Yeah, man, I haven't really been out west. At least I can't remember. I was born out west, but...
Where were you born at?
In Washington State.
Okay. Well, I lived in Oregon for about 3 years.
Yeah, but you remember it. See, I was born there. My dad taught at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. And then we moved, to Nebraska for like a year, and then here,
right?
When we're, So, but nah, man, I don't. I would like to go out and check out some of that stuff.
Oh,
I mean, you have to have time. I want to see it all,
Right,
so
right.
That's kind of like
time and resources.
Yeah.
My
and resources. You know what?
What?
Sometimes the resources really aren't that important. People think they are, but they're not. But the time is more important than
right.
freaking resources, I suppose. Yeah.
And if you had like a little pop-up camper, you save money that way. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do things.
Yeah. So I'd sleep. I mean, out there, the weather it gets cold at night, but it doesn't rain that much. You could sleep in the back of a freaking pickup truck.
Oh, I did when I moved out there because I fixed my truck with a camper and had my belongings underneath with slats.
Was the marijuana industry thriving when you were out there in Oregon, or was it just start? When was this? When were you out there?
It was moved out there in 1998.
98.
Yeah.
So I mean, it wasn't legal though then, right?
It was illegal, but there was a lot.
They were lax.
They were lax.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of it, and the quality was so much better because of that environment. And then you had people up in British Columbia, British Canada, BC.
It was like a jewel, something growing there. Now it's just like you expect it, but back then it was like kind of like a magic secret pot.
I think it was their biggest cash crop, even though it was illegal.
Huh. What would be the other one? Apples?
Maybe almonds, or
I know apples are big in Washington.
Yeah. But
the weather's really different. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, it's just interesting how they call. You ever hear they call California the land of fruits and nuts?
Yeah.
But it has a double meaning.
Right, sure. Well, they call Georgia the peach state.
That's right.
Well, guess what?
What?
Here in South Carolina, we produce more peaches than Georgia. We're not the peach state. Why not?
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I don't know how they identify something, when they vote on it, and then it just becomes the way it is.
They just... something like a nickname or the state bird or something. Yeah.
And then well, then it segued onto, calling beautiful Southern women Georgia peaches.
Yeah.
From Georgia especially. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Maybe it just had a better alliteration or flow to it.
Yeah. Little Feat, what was that song? Is it Skin It Back? You ever heard that song, Skin It Back?
I'm not sure. I love Lowell George, though.
Yeah, but he says something about...
he mentions the Georgia Peach in it, doesn't he?
He just says the girls in Georgia just can't be... He's talking about girls in different spots of the country or whatever, but he's talking about, they just can't be beat or something.
I remember the peach... I mean, the presidents had Millions of Peaches song. You remember that?
Yeah. I wasn't really big.
Oh, no, I just remember that. I mean,
if you were, that's cool.
The Allman Brothers had that album, Eat a Peach.
Eat a Peach, that's right.
Yeah.
But there's no song called Eat a Peach.
No.
They should.
They should have. Yeah.
Peach. Peach ice cream, man. Homemade. Well, peaches are popping now, man. They're blooming.
Are they?
Yeah. I think like May to June is the best time to go. They got all those you pick peach spots, too. Have you ever done that?
No.
You just go out there and they drop you off.
I probably
just go pick freaking peaches, man.
I was probably too lazy and just bought the baskets by the roadside or at the farmer's market.
Good too, man. Yeah, man. When you can hit those like out near Lexington, Batesburg, Saluda, you start seeing a lot of peaches on. I may do it around here too, but like Edgefield, and where's the other spot that's big?
I'm not sure, but
what peaches? Edgefield and Monetta or whatever. That's all kind of connected or whatever, but. Yeah, man, they're big.
Right.
Man, dude, I love freaking peaches.
I love peaches. I love driving down those old country roads and stopping by a stand, and you just get a good feeling about that time in summer or spring, and things. It's just because it's so temporal, and it's just going to be,
Right. And I like my fruit. Like, if I buy from the grocery store, I like it kind of cold.
Right.
But if I get, like, local grown or something, like a... peach that's fucking hot, a peach that's hot or warm, and you take a bite. You know what I mean? That shit is like phenomenal.
And all that sweet juice spills down your neck and all,
Well, getting a little bit weird now, man. I was kind of getting to that point too. But,
well, that's like eating watermelon in the summer. I mean, you can't help it.
I don't put. I don't do the salt thing.
No, I never was about putting salt. My mom used to do that. And on cantaloupe?
Well, I think they do it because it actually makes it
sweeter.
Yeah, but
it just never occurs to me. It was like putting ketchup on eggs, even though I like it now. When I was growing up, my aunt Bunny was like, put some ketchup on it. And I was like, no. And when I did, I was like, man, it's not bad.
Well, that has a little sweetness to it. I like ketchup on an egg sandwich. If I'm eating eggs like breakfast or whatever, I won't do ketchup. But if I'm eating like a sandwich or something, I like that.
Or like rebos rancheros with salsa.
Yeah.
Black beans and fried eggs with.
Last night, I'll show you a picture. I did freaking. I made some hash, like impromptu hash, breakfast hash late at night. I was hungry. It was like a sweet potato hash with some sausage and onions, peppers. Yep. Anyway, I'll show you, dude, it's freaking killer.
I believe.
With like some sunny side egg on it. Yeah, man. But that rancheros, I can't ever pronounce that. What's that called again?
Huevos.
Yeah, huevo. What is that?
Rancheros.
What does that mean?
I don't know. HE, I think huevos might be eggs, but
and then the style or whatever.
I think so. Yeah.
Man, this is good water.
Good. I was thinking of. I'd read an article today or the other day about spontaneous combustion.
I'm aware.
Okay. Well, when I
haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But
no, I'd freak out if I saw that in real time.
What causes it? Just the energy in the atmosphere.
There's only theories because it's so rare. I remember when you remember that show In Search Of when we were kids.
Oh yeah, Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy. Yeah. My brother, I used to watch it. He loved that freaking show. But yeah, it'd come on Saturday.
Something like that.
Saturday evening.
In the evening, yes.
Early.
And it's just, one of those kind of stranger than to believe kind of stories sometimes. And one of them, and it showed real pictures, and the cops were mystified because you could see this kid with his Nike shoes on, and then just a trail of ash for the rest of his body. And I think maybe his jaw and his head was left in his hands. And that seems to be the consistency.
And this was on In Search Of.
Yes, but I hadn't thought about that in a long time. And I was reading an article a couple of days ago, and it was talking about the first recorded one was in like 1600 that they know of, and 1700s. It made the newspapers, and they said the best they could figure is they said there wasn't anything combustible. And they said most of them were old ladies that were a little, corpulent and drank a lot of alcohol. Alcohol always seems to be the involved.
They were like a human freaking, like a malt talk. What do you call it? What is that again? They were like a human...
cigarette?
No, Molotov. What is it?
Oh, Molotov?
Yeah, I can't pronounce certain shit, man.
Yeah, exactly. And
like a wick, like a food. Yeah,
well,
like sterno.
The most fascinating thing to me about it is they never catch anything combustible on fire. So they'd be laying on their bed, and none of their bed would.
Just their bodies.
Yeah, it just might be a little singed. And they said, other than the ash, when they tried to clean it up, it was really greasy. So I guess that's a body fat melting.
I guess, yeah, I would suppose so. Well, I mean, our bodies, produce in different cultures of people, different spots of the world. Their bodies produce, different types of
chemistry.
Right, and it's all to be able to handle, the weather.
Yeah,
like skin color,
adapt to the weather.
Yeah, some people's bodies are a little bit more oily to protect them.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Well, the last one that I found fascinating was some kind of prince in the 1600s, and he came in and his parents were there with him in the kitchen.
And he went up in smoke.
No, it had nothing to do with anything lit, and he started slamming down a goblet or two of wine, and then he started burping, and he couldn't stop burping, and all of a sudden fire came out of his mouth, and in front of his parents, he just disintegrated.
Like Gene Simmons.
Yes,
I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess
it's just crazy concept.
Our freaking bodies, have a lot of energy.
Right? Yeah,
produces a lot of energy. I don't know.
It's hard to say. I know one of the book series I used to read back when I was in Oregon. Carlos Castaneda wrote the Yaqui Way of Knowledge. It was his first one. And he was an anthropology student in California, but he would go to Old Mexico, and he hooked up with
Old Mexico.
Old Mexico.
What's Old Mexico?
Well, it's just like way in the interior, not the big cities.
Okay.
And
Sure.
Yeah, and Don Juan Matisse was a sorcerer, and he was doing his research on that, and he ended up befriending Carlos Castaneda for like 20 years, and he wrote like 12 books and just crazy stuff. But what I was tying into that is before those sorcerers disappear, not necessarily die, they go into a ball of fire called the eagle's emanation.
What does that mean?
Just some kind of mythological symbology, I guess. It's just what they call the eagle's emanation. I guess your spirit flying away, but it wasn't the traditional way of dying and being buried. It was like your body got this.
When was this?
This would have been started in the late 40s, early 50s when he was, like I said, an anthropology student. And for like field work, he had to, he'd write a term paper and then go research it. So,
is he famous for anything, like finding anything?
Well, they were classified in a bunch of New Age books and stuff. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. You ever heard of that one?
Yeah.
Robert M.
Pierce. He wrote that.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, Carlos Castaneda didn't.
No, the other dude.
Robert M. Pierce.
Yeah, I have heard of that. Well, not that name. Well, not that name, but the name of that book. I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
He made a good bit of money, I'm sure, off of that.
Probably. Yeah, I think
they make a movie out of that. What was it about? What was it?
Well, he went through a divorce. I guess he was tired with his work. I think he was a professor, but I can't be positive.
That's what this book was about.
Yeah, and so his young son that he had for the summer, he decided to take him on a motorcycle trip, and they were sharing a motorcycle. I think he had like a Honda or something, nothing fancy.
But what, a sidecar? Or he was riding bitch?
He was riding on the back seat.
Really? I don't think they have. Maybe this could be. They may need to be a script developed on this.
Well, they went, at some point they hooked up with some friends of his, couple, and these people had money, and so they spent on the best BMW motorcycle they could buy.
Okay.
And then you had this
they joined along.
And they just drive across country, but at certain times he always tried to impress upon them, to do maintenance on your, doesn't matter if you got a BMW or a Honda,
right?
That
Simple.
And he was always teaching his son, and those people had money, and they just didn't want to mess with it, and figured. And in the end, theirs ended up breaking down.
And theirs did not.
Yeah, and the Honda didn't. But he talks about, he gets kind of really esoteric, and there's a third character in there, and I think it's this guy's alter ego. It's called Phaedrus.
The guy who wrote the book.
Yes.
His alter ego.
True story, the book.
Okay.
And Phaedrus.
They didn't make a movie about this.
No, I don't think so. I'm not.
Well,
I have to look it up.
Why don't you write a script?
I mean, yeah. Don't you have to get some kind of permission
to write a script?
I guess so.
No, you do what you want to do, and then you freaking trade and copyright it or whatever, and get it published, and then it's your shit, and then you sell it to Hollywood.
Yeah, well,
Hollywood swinging.
I think that he was fighting his depression, where it was almost on a nervous breakdown.
Well, I didn't mean to clap about that. I was clapping about the
peanut gallery.
No, your freaking script.
Right.
That. Yeah. No, I'm at the looking at this. Yeah, I do remember that though.
I'll just have to get another copy of it and reread it, and then go from there.
I don't know if I'll reread it. I'll maybe Wikipedia.
Right. Well, I was thinking I like or paperbacks.
Yeah, I know you like to read. I know.
Well, I used to be obsessed with it to the point where I would get a little anxiety if I ran out of things to read. But then that's
understandable. It was your addiction, which I mean, you could have a lot worse things to be addicted to. Right. So that's. How can that be? Oh, I guess if you're reading bad stuff, it can be bad. Yeah, but no, man. I mean, you're.
But after 3 years, I just slowly came back to it. Actually, when I got out of the hospital, and
started back reading again?
Yes. I just on purpose just took a break from a lot of things, and it reminds me. My friend Brian, he's like, Jay, I don't like to read, and I was like, do you like to breathe oxygen or drink water? What do you mean you don't like to read? That was kind of my take on it.
Well,
I never thought about it as something you like to do, or it was just, But it wasn't that he couldn't read, it's just he didn't.
Right. Well, with my thing, and I've always been this way, man, I lose interest, really, really quickly,
Yeah.
Now, and I suppose that's probably maybe got a lot to do with the material I'm reading, But I do become engaged if I'm reading something that, that I'm interested in and it excites me, then I can read. But that doesn't happen very often, you know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting because when I was probably 7 or 8, being my older brother and my older sister sit around the breakfast table waiting to eat and then go to the bus stop during school. And I remember one day they would always talk books to each other, and I was left out of the equation, know. And so I found a Reader's Digest, right?
How old were you guys?
7 or 8. My brother would be 9 and my sister 11.
Nerds.
We had problems.
The nerd book club. Me and my brother my brother read a lot too, but our breakfast consisted of us getting in a fight, usually.
That wasn't all. We built forts and, went down the Saluda River on rafts, and our parents didn't know, and jumped to trains in our backyard.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So
I didn't mean to interrupt you either.
No, it was just funny.
But it was like the nerd club.
Yeah.
God, what?
Well, I just wanted to be part of it.
Who does that? That's like the Dungeons and Dragons crew.
Yeah, right. So when they were talking about what they were reading, I piped up and I said, well, I read this great article in Reader's Digest. And they started laughing. Man, I felt so humiliated because I didn't pronounce it digest,
That did bother me. I can read quickly, when you have to read in class.
Right.
Not me reading, but when somebody was called upon to read that couldn't read very well.
Yeah.
I felt bad for him. You know what I mean?
I wanted to put a bullet in my head having to listen to him.
Well, I felt bad for him.
Well, I did too, but I still...
God, how embarrassed, So my
mom...
I didn't get called upon because I ran my mouth too much.
Well, she made them go to the bus stop, and she drove me to school, and she told me on the way, being the wisdom of Solomon, said that she was going to give me a book, and any book she wanted to give me to read, if I read it, she would give me $5. It's a lot of money,
yeah.
Especially when you're 7 or 8. so she did, and unfortunately she gave me this epic tome. Charles Dickens, this Victorian writer, David Copperfield was the name of the book. And I was like, the $5 was the carrot that got me through it. But what the magic was, and like I said, her wisdom was once I got 20% through it, because back then they had so many characters and I couldn't assimilate them and enjoy the book. But at some point something shifted and I didn't have to concentrate on the characters, where it was almost like I knew them. And then
it was like brought to life, real life.
Yeah, and the story.
It was entertainment.
Yeah, it was like watching a movie in my head while I was reading it. I loved it.
Well, that's why they have it.
Yeah.
It's entertainment.
Yep, and then after that, she did that 3 or 4 times, and then she goes, all right, we're going to make a new deal. And I was like, what's that? She goes, all right, no more money. Whatever book you want me to read, I'll read, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And then I was off to the races and never looked back, and that was very edifying, you know.
I used to read a lot of, I think I've told you this too. I would read if I had to, you know, in school, but I did read a lot, but I would like get college football rosters at that age, 7, 8 years old, you know, the anthem, and it would go over every team's roster, every player breakdown. Anyway, there for a while, man, a good stretch, I was really good at knowing like people's stats, where they were from, this and that. It was almost kind of weird.
Like the Rain Man?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like and I'm kind of out of the loop now because I don't really
follow that
watch too much college or professional sports anymore. Right. Not that I don't like it. I mean, I definitely am a bigger fan of college sports than I am pro, but I don't know. I've got more important things now are more important to me than, you know, couldn't wait to watch football on Sunday or this or that, or now it's kind of like, well, if it's on, you know, it's cool and I like it and I get into it, but like I would get into it like days in advance, you know, and it didn't even have to be my normal school I pulled for, any big game, man.
Sure. But you know, the mental exercise is the same point.
Sure,
you know, because like you're exercising your brain,
retaining, but I just retain silly information, and you know.
You know, I'm of the belief that none of it's silly if it's shifting you to a higher plateau of learning, and you know, it informs how we talk and articulate.
Oh yeah,
you know,
without a doubt,
and just how you can relate to other people. You know,
that's right.
Yeah.
Are you kind of giving me like hints throughout this thing? Like, are you trying to like encourage me to start reading more?
No, I think they say after. I think they say after the age of 50, it's too late.
Well, they also say if you take more than 7 hits LSD, you're legally insane. Don't they say that or something like that?
Yeah, or maybe that was about masturbating. No,
I think either way, I'm
you're doing
insane. And no, the masturbation thing was like you would go blind.
Right.
I think so. And then or make your nose grow or whatever. I remember somebody told me that. Looked in the mirror when I was done, you know, when I was younger.
If you lied.
Years old. My nose isn't growing.
Yeah.
No, but
that was old ripping off of Pinocchio, like, you know, threat.
Pinocchio didn't masturbate.
No, his nose would grow.
Oh,
I thought you were talking about your nose.
Well, I was, but somebody, your nose grows when you masturbate. Anyway. And what was the other thing we were just talking about?
We were talking about reading.
Oh, yeah.
I came across, I was thinking the other day about the old Fred Flintstone series.
Do you think this was going to need to be rescheduled, this whole episode?
No, why?
No, I don't need to know. Why?
No. But I was thinking about Fred Flintstone that I hadn't watched in years and years, the original one.
Yes.
Yep. And one of them stands out in my mind is when he plays Rip Van Winkle. I think it's by, who is that? By Washington Irving wrote it, and it's considered the first short story written in America.
Really?
Yeah.
Fred played?
What's that?
Who played it?
Fred played it.
Really? I don't remember that episode.
The setup was that Fred had a company picnic Mr. Slate was throwing, an annual picnic.
Okay.
And he didn't want to go. He'd rather go, bowl or drink beer. But Wilma pushed him. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but Wilma pushed him. And he took Barney and Betty with him and kids. And then at that point, he was just getting tired of all for the whole reason he didn't want to be there to begin with, so he just kind of hikes off to take a nap and wakes up 20 hours later, or 20 years later, and had a big beard, and he just lost 20 years of his life, and it's just kind of a metaphor for just what you do with your time and keeping interested. And for whatever reason, this probably was written in 1757. So once he came to and kind of came out of the dream, he participated in life like he hadn't before. I guess it's probably a moral tale about not being selfish when you got people around you. Consider others. Old Rip Van Winkle. He also wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. He was like Dutch or German, something like that. Maybe a combination. Is that still going?
Yeah.
Or you're going to have to edit that because I took a pause.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I couldn't. I wasn't sure. So I didn't want to.
Yeah, so we're back after a brief. We're just back after a brief recess. I actually had to step out and pee,
right.
And I left you unattended. I thought you were going to be able to carry it, man. So,
some days are better than others.
No, I know.
I
know.
Recalling.
I didn't mean to put you on a... anyway, I stepped out. I had to go pee, and Jason was talking. I was like, I'll be right back,
Yeah.
And then he came back and said, I don't know. There was a little pause, but anyway.
I heard these three men, old men, talking the other day, and one of them was complaining about having a problem waking up in the middle of the night and having to pee too much, right?
Okay.
Number one, I guess they call it, right?
Right.
And the second old gentleman...
Well, that would be bad. He had to shit every...
Yeah. But I mean, they were like sitting there in a rocking chair in old folks' home.
Okay.
And so the second gentleman says, well, I got problems getting up, having to do number two. And the third gentleman, they looked at him and asked, well, you know what was it for him? And he's like, oh, it's fine now. I get up at 7:40, do number one, get up at 8 o'clock, do number two. And they said, well, that's great. He's like, yeah, but I don't get out of bed till 9 o'clock. Anyhow, little bathroom humor.
Yeah. Well, at least he recognized it.
Right. Yeah. Probably had a more expensive laundry.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we started this podcast. We're about to wrap it up. That goes into some. They had the wealthy, like somebody like Caesar.
Yeah.
And the wealthy Roman people. They had indoor plumbing, didn't they? Or some like.
They did. They had aqueducts.
Yeah, I knew that.
They had indoor hot baths.
Yeah. And like faucets they would have.
Yeah. And they had rows of flat rock with toilet holes cut in, toilet seats.
Right, inside, right.
Yeah.
And like little, yeah. And they had, they would divert their sewage out of the city limit, so they were ahead.
And brought their water, fresh water up in aquifers.
Who else
the whole
did
city
had plumbing like that? Did the Aztecs or Incas ever have like plumbing?
I'm sure it was somebody else.
European. I mean, I'm not European. Egyptians. You would think maybe they would. Huh?
I don't know. It would be interesting to. I mean, it would be probably a little disgusting to find out all the, the bathroom.
The elephant dung story I told you about Cleopatra.
Yeah. Matter of fact, there's a long time ago I thought of a band named the Dung Beetle Revival. You ever seen the dung beetle?
Yeah.
Those things are
got
crazy.
a beetle sticker on my...
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Egyptians, they worship the scarab, which was a beetle.
Yeah. Well, they have different, beetles, different types of beetles.
Right.
Different things, and different cultures do. But a lot of it, I put it on there for mine, for like rebirth, rebirth,
But the dung beetles, if you ever seen them, they live in, I think, the African desert.
Yeah, and they roll off.
Elephant
dung, right?
Yeah,
and with their little fucking.
But like sometimes hunt like 100 miles, and they do it. No, they do it backwards. They kick it backwards. They like roll on the ball, and they're pushing forward with their legs.
100 miles. I did not know this.
Sometimes, and then they drop it. They drop it into their nest at the hole in the ground for the kids to eat.
So that's like determination, number one.
That is. Much respect. Very resilient little bugs. Big bugs, actually.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
that's about.
This was, a different podcast. We talked about Julius Caesar. We talked about 3 old men, dude shitting and pissing in the bed. We kind of talked about a little bit of everything, I guess.
Didn't have one common thread.
No, it didn't.
Covered a lot of bases.
I mean, that's kind of where we are. And again, moving forward, we're going to try to have guests. It's just difficult meeting at one place that's, we're the host.
Right.
You're the we're the host. Meeting someone else is going to be on the show. Like, we're going to go to their house. They're going to go to my house.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
it'll happen.
Yeah, it'll happen. So
I predict the next time because I said on the 7th one, this is the 6th.
Well, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So I'll make your prediction come true.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Sounds great.
But anyway.
That'll be the color purple.
What's that?
The 7th one. The color purple? Yeah, that's the color for the 7th. I'm not really sure about that.
7, June 7th is not a You said 7 is purple, 58. Famous has birthday.
Your mom's in July.
Anyway, y'all take it easy.